Hi. This is Novel Admire. Welcome to my channel. Have fun. Never Die Extra. Chapter 1, Prologue. Evan Desjardins, Dream. One day in March, that first month of spring when the flowers are in bloom and the birds are putting everything into their song, 9-year-old Evan Desjardins, second son of the Marquis, had a very vivid and strange dream. In this dream, Evan was an ordinary youngster living in an imaginary world called the Earth, and he was involved in a role-playing game, a game that lasts hundreds, if not thousands of hours. There were many characters in this game, each with their unique traits and abilities, but one of them in particular had the unique trait of dying very quickly. Evan grew to have something of an obsession with this moribund character. Every time the character died, Evan would reset the game and try to prevent the character's death by adopting different strategies. Still, no matter what he did, he was unable to stop his character from dying. To make matters worse, every time he reset the game it seemed like his character would die ever more miserably. These deaths were hardly heroic. His character often died by accidentally stepping on a landmine or being hit by a poisoned arrow intended for someone else. He would even die from falling over on the street. Other deaths could be even more humiliating. He'd end up drinking poison, thinking it was something else. But merely drinking anything too fast would be lethal to him. Evan's character would walk into the path of an evil troupe and rapidly succumb to their manipulative dark magic. Their magic would be fatal to him, naturally. Ever more calamitous were the times when Evan's character would come across a dungeon treasure box. In his excitement, he would simply stare at the box and forget to open it. Then the box would punish his lack of haste by releasing poisonous gas that would surround him and send him to his deadly sleep. The character was met with many a tragic fate. He often bore the brunt of unexpected counterattacks from better equipped foes. He could be regularly observed being cruelly murdered by giant monsters as he ran towards them. When he did catch up to the monsters, they would always punish him with their blades. There seemed to be nothing Evan could do to save his character from a swift mortal judgment. One time the character's girlfriend grew jealous, and proceeded to kill him in cold blood. Talk about terminal relationship. The magic of King Yoma also had a particularly cruel tendency to end the character's life. Here then, Evan eventually realized, was a character who seemed to face an unfortunate death no matter what. Where on earth could all of this tragedy possibly happen to just one individual? Evan knew the answer. So do many others. This role-playing game of boundless freedom and relentless possibility is a massive hit on Earth. It appears in the deep darkness of Dungeon City Episode 3. Still, regardless of which route the player takes, the character would always die in vain. It looked as though this was the only possible outcome, at least as far as Evan Desjardins could see. How many times did this character die in this game? There are only a few CGs for the main character and a few CGs for each boss, but Evan's death must have been favored by the production team. Starting with convincing analysis. It's a game you can't clear until Evan dies. The whole world is hoping for Evan's death. It was public belief that Evan's presence in the game was blocking the powers of King Yoma, making it impossible for anyone to enter the final battle until Evan died. Evan was becoming something of a cult figure within the game, attracting venomous comments laden with schadenfreude. It was common to hear such sentiments as, "I love Evan running straight for death anytime, anywhere." There were malicious comments that reflected on the disconnect between Evan's lively appearance and his uncanny tendency to drop dead in the most ugly of circumstances. It's so thrilling that a handsome young man always dies in vain. People were not exactly shy to voice their sadistic ideas on the situation. "I love it so much that I want to save the dead Evan and kill him again." Evan was certainly attracting cult popularity among a sinister group of players. There were even a few perverted players who conspired to secure Evan's terrible fates time and time again. No, that's my story. Sir, what's the matter? That day, Evan, the second son of Marquis Desjardins, who rules the city of Dungeon, remembered all of his 29 years of life as a rebel. He remembered that he was a Korean Yoban minutes. Evan remembered how he had always died in vain in that game world, the world of the Great Battle 3, the deep darkness of Desjardins, The dungeon city. These memories were fraught with despair. I can't die. Evan opened his eyes in the middle of the night. The room was pitch black. Evan was sweating slightly after struggling on his bed for hours in an as of yet futile attempt to revive the memories of his past life. Now though, his efforts had paid off and the memories clicked into place. I can't just sit still and die like this. Evan shouted into the air, the perspiration dripping from his forehead. Evan leapt up from his bed. His body, a body that hinted only at the passing of 9 years of life, now felt utterly strange and somewhat fragile to Evan as his mind began to assimilate the memory of his previous life and reconcile it with his present reality. But this now, this right here, this was definitely the reality. He was Evan Desjardins, not Ioban Minutes, and this world was very similar to the world in the game of the Battle of Yoma 3. Noticing the incredible similarity for the first time, Evan realized that the inevitable must happen here as it did there. The day was on its way. That day of mortal fate put in motion. The day Evan dies in vain. That this was certain was clear to Evan in the way the world was far too similar to the game. He didn't stop to consider why this was the case, he just knew that his memories were real and that they would lead to his certain death in his present reality. I have to come up with a solution, he thought out loud. But how? Thinking about the countless crises ahead of him just drew a blank. But at times like this, he must stay calm. The memory of 29 years weighed down on him, the despair of countless deaths replaying over and over in his mind. No longer was he an ordinary 9-year-old boy. Right, I'll just write down everything I know. Everything I remember about the game world will be valuable information. He ran to his desk and sat on his chair. He turned on a lamp that operates as a mana stone, an energy source mined in dungeon. And an unassuming notebook lying on the desk. This wasn't just any old notebook though. This was Free Records, an artifact commonly unearthed in dungeon. With this, Evan could freely write whatever he wanted, modify whatever he wanted, and it even had security features so that no one else besides him could examine its contents. When he had used it before, he had thought it to be an amazing tool. But now, with the addition of his other set of memories, he saw the artifact's similarity with the computer's document function. First of all, yeah, Evan readied himself mentally to start the task of recounting his memories. Evan picked up his favorite quill pen, dipped it in an ink bottle, what better writing equipment for a marquis' son? And murmured in a lugubrious voice. Let's record all my deaths. Ioban Minutes, an ordinary young Korean man, first came across the Yoma Great War series when he was 16. Although the first work of the Yoma Great War series, Yoma Great War 1, wasn't as graphically rich as other games, the story's charm was so great as to render the story's graphical shortcomings irrelevant. Ioban Minutes, a rather sensitive boy, fell in love with the Yoma Great War. Having completed the game entirely in just 3 days, he played the game repeatedly and looked forward to the next series to get released. How could I have possibly died from a slime? Evan thought. That hadn't been a good ending. It hadn't been good at all. In the sequel to Yoma Great War, many aspects of the game were changed. Ioban Minutes enjoyed spotting all the changes, even the minor changes like the alteration to the heroine's story in the post-game sequence. Thanks to the success of Yoma Great War 1, the production team had been able to raise their budget to produce Yoma Great War 2. As a result, there was a huge improvement in combat convenience, especially in the graphics, that many players were thrilled to find out about. Ioban Minutes, of course, cleared Yoma Great War 2 in just 1 week. No, how could you have died in such a simple trap? That doesn't even make sense. After the Yoma Great War 2, Yoma Great War 0 was released. This game depicted the story of an ancient Taoist playing against King Yoma. It kept the historical setting of the previous entries in the Yoma Great War series, but this new installment allowed players to work cooperatively. There were grand dungeons and mystical magic, as before. As you might have imagined, Ioban Minutes cleared 0 in no time, just 10 days. Ioban Minutes, ever the critic of these games' stories, found it regrettable that they did not reveal the ancient Taoist's identity, But everything else he found simply perfect. Oh, it's good to be born handsome, but why do all these women turn out to be such psychos? 46 endings where I'm stabbed to death by a woman? Are you kidding me? A few years later, when Yoban Minutes became a college student, Yoma Great War 3 was released. This had masterful graphics, loads of new abilities to use, plenty of scenarios to play through, and total freedom to users. Here was a masterpiece that improved on everything that had come before. Those who had overlooked the previous Yoma Great War entry could not ignore this third installment in the series. Depending on how the main character is nurtured, the ending was divided into hundreds of detailed scenarios, with three-dimensional personalities given to every supporting character. The supporting characters even had the agency to go about their own lives, and their own decisions would influence the outcome. Anyone who played the game referred to it as God without hesitation. Well, the succubus. This God was pretty good. It was all downhill after that, but you know. Yoban Minutes also indulged in Yoma Great War 3. Along with playing the main character's quest, he traveled around the dungeon city of Shurden to complete every side quest the game had to offer and really get to grips with everything the game had to offer. Particularly in this third entry in the series, the ability to connect with multiple women was expanded, so Yoban Minutes tried his best to achieve the so-called harem root condition. He succeeded. How did he die? Oh, poison. That's such a cliché. A secondary character who somehow ends up dying no matter how the main character advances the story. That must be Evan D. Sheridan's character's role. The second son of Marquis, the owner of Dungeon City, reduced to just a pawn who needed to die for the game to finish. He must be the character who dies for the main character. That's right, wears no force like the main member, but he's loyal, and he was quick to get over if he worked on it a little bit. Even 5 endings where you're beaten to death. Why are you shoving a warrior on a wizard and getting hit by a knife instead, you little brat? No, this is me. Yoban Minutes felt a kind of fate at that moment. It was in that moment that he realized his sense of duty as a gamer. If the game is this heavily dependent on its players, then there must be an ending for Evan. If the main character's ability to overcome even King Yoma, the ultimate king, will undoubtedly save Evan. It doesn't matter. It eventually becomes a happy ending. I'll save Evan somehow. Now determined to carry out this mission, Yoban Minutes began to play the game with abandon. If Evan dies, restart, restart. If he dies, just restart. Getting poison, being assassinated, dying from a sprained foot, meeting the final boss too soon, dying from a dungeon curse. Although there was a moment when Yoban Minutes turned to the newer Yoma Great War 4, the secret of the new generation, he ended up returning to Yoma Great War 3. He still had to save Evan. Yoma Great War 4 was set 5 years after Yoma Great War 3, but Evan did not appear in this 4th installment. Damn those producers. Death, death, death. Death. Dumped by my fiancé. Suicide. What a way to go. But in the end, Yoban Minutes found it impossible. It didn't matter how much time he invested in it. He spent 6 years in Yoma Great War 3 trying to save Evan but never managed to do it. His last memory as Yoban Minutes was when Evan pushed the main character out of the final match and was killed by the curse of King Yoma instead. As no gamer was high-leveled enough to take Evan into the final battle without killing him, Yoban Minutes was perhaps the only one who knew the truth. There's nothing I can do. He dies. That's that. Evan can't be saved. The main character cannot save Evan. But I have to save him. I am Evan, no one else. Only, Evan D. Sheridan. You have to live. Evan glanced through the notes of all his deaths and breathed deeply. He seemed to calm down a little now. Okay. I'll never die. Never. Let's get started. Evan had come to a conclusion. He tapped his cheeks as a way of signaling to himself that he had made up his mind. He would become a character who never dies. Chapter 2, Evan D. Sheridan, clenched his fist. 1. In a world where dungeons exist, monsters dominate, knights play an active part, wizards cast magic on a grand scale. What is the best way not to die in this world? Level up. Evan ate the watery soup that the maid brought him and quietly muttered to himself. In short, the level is the key to keep existing. As the level rises, the wizard increases the mana. The spells become dominant, and the warrior becomes more durable and more reliable. It was a straightforward equation of growth. But Maybelle, a 13-year-old apprentice, heard his mumble, spoke out as if she was amazed. "You're going into dungeon, master? No way, your mother will get a heart attack." "I was talking to myself, Maybelle. You should not even think of it in your dreams, master. You have a noble's duty, you must enter the dungeon when you become an adult, and until then, you must get an education. Please don't go until you grow up." "Yes, I got it. I know it well. Thank you for the soup." Evan returned the empty bowl to the maid with an inward smile. He wasn't just talking to himself. He deliberately leaked the word level to induce her reaction. And given the immediate connection of dungeons to the word level, it was clear that there was a flaw in the knowledge of the people in this society. "No, of course, I am only 9 years old as Evan. I have to make a rough guess. But no matter what, Evan is only 9 years old. There is no guarantee that his knowledge will necessarily match with the general understanding of the people in this world. That's why he went through the process of proving check with his maid. So, what was the fact that he was just able to confirm with his own words and the maid's reaction, and that's the misunderstanding that level can only be gained when entering a dungeon. No, of course, it's not that their perception is entirely wrong. In dungeons, the level certainly rises, and it was apparent. When he completely conquered the floor of the dungeon with his colleagues, it would take them to the next level, whether they like it or not. The original skills will grow, and sometimes, methods and magic that never existed before were created. It's easy to understand, easy to accept. When the unknown space of dungeons appeared in the world for the first time, people were terrified. There was also a rumor that the building was built by the king as a bridgehead to invade the human world from the world of monsters. But those who entered the dungeon and conquered the dungeon became stronger by God's blessing and began to acquire treasures that had never been heard of outside of the dungeon. What would have happened? They shouldn't allow people to run wild over a dungeon. The country immediately sent a nobleman to manage the dungeon and build a city near to it, systematically possessing the dungeon and getting control over who can enter it. The Marquis, Evan's father, Sorin Desjardins, was also an influential aristocrat. They had been in charge of the dungeon for generations under the orders of the king. If nothing extraordinary happens, Evan's brother, Eric Desjardins, will take over the duty. Eric Desjardins can grow to be the leading member of a warrior party. A second son was not needed. No, it's not important for now. But Toddy. In fact, I'm saying that level could be gained not only by going to dungeons. There was a different way of gaining a level, and that path is what Evan is going to take from now on. Evan smiled, recalling the myriad of work with the main character in his previous life as a gamer. The maid caught the wicked smile that did not suit the 9-year-old boy. "Sir?" "Nothing, Maybelle." Evan smiled at Maybelle as if he is trying to cover up his mistake. As Evan is a good-looking guy from the series, he still has a charm that can't be hidden even at the age of 9. That could fascinate a 13-year-old maid Maybelle. "Huh, you look the best when you smile like that, sir." "No, Maybelle. I'm afraid I can't laugh as much as I can." "Why? You look cute. Great when you smile." At Evan's firm answer, Maybelle got startled and shouted. However, Evan could not help but think about Maybelle, who appears as one of the Marquis's maids in the main episode of the game. Maybelle, who grew up beautifully, falls in love with Evan. In the story, Maybelle will appear and stab Evan in the stomach. It was because he abandoned her for another woman. There are 5 more storylines of other maids stabbing him with a knife. Even the CG is different every time. Why did the producers make 6 different CGs for Evan to be stabbed to death by a maid? Evan, how much have you seduced women? Evan, who was born again, had no intention of getting involved in any strange relationship with the maids. Falling in love with maids will surely lead him to death. For the same reason, It was also good not to love any other woman as much as possible. No, it's best not to tempt in the first place. So, he won't smile in the future. I will never seduce a woman. I was born as a handsome man, damn it. Maybelle, when is my birthday? He tried to change the subject with tears in his heart. Now that he has checked people's perception of level, he got to figure out how to survive. He pushes to project number 1 into action. The name of project number 1 is Level Up. It's next Wednesday, Master. Next Wednesday. I can't wait until then. I'd like you to tell my father I want to see him right away. Maybe he'd say no, but alright, Master. I'll talk to him, please don't move until then. Because you're still recuperating. He was treated like a patient because he had been struggling on the bed all day long while he regained his memory. Okay, I'll just wait and see. Evan answered gently and sent Maybelle out and thought about what he had to get from his father, Soren Desjardins. Maricelle's necklace. It was the first artifact that Sheridan family found in Sheridan Dungeon. It was kept as a family heirloom. But it stayed simply as a family heirloom. No one knew how to use this artifact, so it was stuck in the family storage. It looks gorgeous with a variety of jewels and looks like it got a lot of magic. In fact, there was an event to acquire this artifact in the game. It was an event that was challenging, where you need to achieve some conditions in advance, investigate history, and get stronger. Of course, this event also led to Evan's death. Evan and I have been busy trying to get recognition from the family. In the dungeon, he has gathered all sorts of times and offered them to the people involved in the Marquis. I have to put a lot of effort to get an artifact. However, the artifact cannot be given to just anyone. I had to commit brotherhood with Evan to be recognized for his artifact ownership. Did the event end with the recognition of ownership? Of course not. From then on, another event begins to unlock with the secrets of this artifact. At this point, Evan is still working together to help the main character, even finding a spell to invoke artifacts from the ancient documents. Evan shuddered at the thought of the event that took place from that moment. It was one of the 5 most memorable death scenes for Evan. Just to think of it gives him a trauma. The moment Evan snapped off the Maricelle's necklace, the artifact burst with magic. An absurd number of slimes came out of it and covered Evan's whole body. Just slimes. All the players who saw the event were furious. Slime. Maricelle. Are you kidding me, producer? It's only level 1 normal slime that I can bring from this artifact I've earned from hard work, you bastards. No, and slime's even attacking the summoner. Evan, you're bleeding. Bleeding. Wow, thousands of slimes are attacking all at once. Oh, I'm dying. Evan is dying. There's never a single time in a crisis that he won't die. Even at the time, Evan only knew how to invoke the artifact, and he didn't know how to stop it. And slimes continued to swell and attack Evan. Sticky, acidic mucus melts. Evan melts. The main character is surprised to see the scene. The main character tries to save him, but Evan is already dead, covered in slime. Video footage of the event from beginning to end became the best of the month, decorating the main screen of the Oma Great War fan website. With the title Evan died number 36, Slime Funeral. Only, the game scenario ends with summoning a number of slimes that you could not get out of. In the middle and second half of the game. Naturally, players avoided that event. Evan maniacs like me were terrified, but at this moment, Evan was looking at the potential for growth in that artifact. Why? Because when he was playing the game as the main character, when he swung a sword to save Evan and killed one slime, he discovered something. You got one experience. Yes. If he can catch slime summoned with the Maricelle's necklace, he will be rewarded with experience. Another level, the level of existence, without having to get in a dungeon. He can get the experience needed. Chapter 3. Evan Desjardins clenched his fist. 2. Every human action is given a corresponding result value. The word experience, in relation to dungeons, will immediately come to mind, but really, it is existence level that makes growing and building up experience possible. To train in swordsmanship, to qualify in chess, to use mana, to recite spells, to mop, to study, or hunt a monster. In all such situations, human beings gain experience whether many or few and rise in existence levels and become stronger. People think that growing in dungeon levels is what's worth the effort, but it shouldn't be that way. What's more important for the player is to grow in existence levels along with the dungeon levels. Growth in existence level is not as dramatic as compared to rising in the dungeon level, but it is miraculous enough in itself. There is no choice but to adapt the speed of dungeon level growth depending on one's ability, but existence level had no such limit. Still and repetitive efforts in every single time, anyone can surely grow if they can endure a dull and tedious process. Leveling up, especially by hunting monsters, is no exception. That's why people loved dungeons. It was a place where we could be rewarded if we tried. But, he thought, Evan is still so young, so he can't get into the dungeon yet. It's even worse to go outside the city where wild monsters roam. But what if you summon slime from an artifact? What if slime was weak enough for a child to kill? The Marisol's necklace could call up slimes. At existence level 1 and dungeon level 1, both the slime and the main character only have HP, health point, 100 and MP 100, so even Evan can kill a few of them. Marisol's necklace is an artifact that could speed up Evan's growth. It didn't mean much to high level characters. By killing a level 1 slime, you could get 1 experience value. Such low value means nothing to high level characters. But for someone who is just at level 1, like Evan, he would surely grow faster, killing slimes rather than sticking to his desk and study for 10 hours. This is how the Level Up project begins. And if I keep doing it from now on while I am only 9 years old, I could get stronger by the time a maid tries to stab me. And then his thoughts were cut off by a maid's voice. Lord, the Marquis is waiting. Oh, yeah. I'll be right there. It was a different maid, not Mabel. Evan jumped out of bed, dressed up, and followed her out of the room. Wow, if you saw all the paintings on the wall, you learn enough for the rest of your life. He thought, as they walked through the hallway. It was the same hallway that he walked through just yesterday. But now that he has regained the memory of his previous life, he is fascinated by the items in the mansion. It was as expected for a mansion where the head of the city dungeon lived. As he looked through the hallway with fresh eyes, the maid asked him quietly. I've heard from Mabel that you want a birthday present in advance. Yes. There's something I really want. But don't be too demanding. The Marquis is still busy with the backflow of the dungeon. Yes, I know. The dungeon backflow is a phenomenon in which the monsters of the dungeon overflow outside. In the early days of the dungeon's discovery, it was what made people call the dungeon the den of the devil. Destruction was inevitable, and the people living near it suffered. However, they soon learned that dungeon backflows regularly happen every 3 months. As such, hunters were able to devise a regular schedule of hunting monsters inside the dungeon and defeating the overflows. Human adaptability. However, this time, the cleaning was a little unfortunate, and it caused a lot of damage. It was terrible timing to beg for something, but he can't help it. Because he has to grow up a little faster and survive. The main character is 16 years old by the time the main episode happens. Evan is 4 years older than the main character, so 20 years. He would be 20 years old by then. 11 years to go. I have to keep him safe, he should not die before the main episode. He has to save himself from now on. Be careful of the road, of little monsters, be mindful of the poison, be wary of people, especially the woman with the knife. Evan focused on reviewing the precautions carefully in his head. When he came to his senses, he had already arrived in front of the room where the Marquis is waiting for him. The maid gently knocked on the door of the library to announce Evan's visit. I've brought Evan, master. Soon, beyond the door came the Marquis' deep voice. Tell him to come in. You should go back to work. Okay. The maid gently twisted the doorknob open, and backed away, opening the door for him. The series of refined and courteous movements amazed Evan. These movements were unfamiliar in his 29 years of living on Earth. "Why are you still standing by the door, Evan?" The Marquis' voice startled him. "Oh, yeah. Father." Evan stepped into the library. The first things he saw were the mountains, and mountains of papers piled in front of his father. Behind the mountains, he could see the Marquis' face. "Come closer here. The fatigue I have accumulated so far is gone just by looking at your face," the Marquis said. The Marquis was a middle-aged man who gave the impression that he was going to be very stubborn. Frankly speaking, Evan does not look very much like him. They only had one thing in common: dark, deep violet eyes that noblemen have. The rest of Evan's features closely resembled his mother, who has dark hair, a sharp nose, and slender build. Unbeknownst to the Marquis, Evan is very grateful that he looks more like his mother than his father. "Father." "Yes, Evan. You came here yourself to beg for something?" Marquis lifted Evan, his 9-year-old son, and sat him on his lap. It didn't suit the dignity of a nobleman, but why should he hide his affection? The Marquis dotes on Evan, who looks just like his wife. Evan was banking on this knowledge when he decided he would ask for a family heirloom. "Well, I'd like to get my birthday present a little early. You could wait for a few days, and I'll let you have whatever you want." "What's the rush?" "I really want the necklace I saw before." "The necklace? You?" The Marquis' eyes opened wide at his son's request. It was not what he expected. A boy of this age usually wants a sword, armor, or a living animal. But a piece of jewelry? No, wait, the Marquis thought, confused. The necklace he saw before? He is not talking about his mother or my second wife's necklaces. So, what do we have? Come to think of it, what I just showed him one a while ago. You don't think? Is it the Marcel's necklace? He asked his son with curious eyes. Evan nodded. I'd like to have that necklace with a bunch of little jewels. I see. It's not something you can take out recklessly. Didn't I tell you about this? But father, I really want it. Evan looked up at the Marquis with tears in his purple eyes, eyes that were the same as his father. An 9-year-old boy's cuteness is powerful. Its effect is extraordinary, and primarily when targeted at parents, its destructive power is to break through the universe. But Evan, no matter how insignificant the necklace may look, it is still an heirloom. I can't easily give out the family heirloom, the Marquis thought with strong determination, which was gradually weakening as he looked at his son's cuteness. A theory came to his mind. There's a saying that the artifact chooses the right owner to have it. If the Marcel's necklace chose Evan and he could bring out the true power of the necklace. The real ability is to summon level 1 slime, but the Marquis didn't know that. He looked at his son with a mournful expression and agonized repeatedly. Then, he finally nodded. All right, Evan. I'll give it to you. Really? I love you. Evan cheered and hugged the Marquis. It doesn't matter if the Marquis is a middle-aged man with a hairy face, he could have kissed a chimpanzee right now. But, there's something to be careful about, Evan, the Marquis calmed him down as he was jumping for joy. Chimpanzees? No, focus, Evan thought. He tilted his head and asked. What is it? That's because there's a limit on the number of artifacts you can equip. All of a sudden, something like a game came up. The sword, armor, rings, earrings, necklaces, bracelets. Up to 5, regardless of the area. This is the limit to the ability of the magical armor and artifact. More than that is something our bodies cannot carry. Okay. It was definitely the same in the game. Therefore, when and where to wear certain artifacts is a critical issue. Only, the usual tactic was to carry a sword or armor and fill out the rest of the slots with artifacts. So if you grow up and need another artifact, take off the Marcel's necklace and put it back in the storage. You don't have to keep wearing a necklace that's worth a lot of money. Yes, I will. Evan's original plan was to return it back when he could no longer raise the level with slimes. He won't be able to level up forever with slimes that only give 1 experience point. I wish I could check my existence level and skills, he thought, but that's impossible. That's the conclusive proof that this world is not a game. With such thoughts, Evan sighed. Anyways, what matters is that he got the Marisol's necklace successfully. Project number 1, Level Up, was in operation. Chapter 4, Evan Desjardins, clenched his fist. 3. He. Oh, I shouldn't laugh. When Evan returned to the room with the Marisol's necklace given to him by the Marquis, he locked the door tightly behind him and put the necklace on his neck. At that moment, a video of Slime's funeral flashed through his mind and made his body shudder, but Evan shook his head off. He will make sure the video doesn't happen to him. He is not a fool this time. I already know how to register as the owner of the artifact, how to summon slime. Single summon, continuous summons, stop summoning. Level 1 slime is slime that can be dealt with by level 1 children. Perhaps, if he masters the artifact, he can even summon a slime from a distance. Still, that was too much to do and will have little effect because the slime would only be level 1. First, I'll memorize the spells. He murmured. Lopsigaharharyigbujermi. Evan chanted the spell. Yoban minutes, Evan's previous life, how could he forget this spell? It was the spell that killed Evan so horribly. But this time, this spell will save Evan, it will save me. Lopsigaharharyigbujermi. There were countless jewels making up the necklace. One of the jewels, a green one stuck in the center, shone brilliantly. Come out, slime. Evan fused mana into the artifact. He was not the ordinary Yoban minutes anymore, but Evan, who has natural mana control even at 9 years old. Squeak. At that moment, a small slime appeared on Evan's left palm. It's a really cute, green slime that couldn't even fill the hand of a child. Squeak. Cute. You look so cute. There were 2 types of slimes in most games, a creepy one, and a cute one. Whether it's a relief or a misfortune, the slime in the Yoma Great War series was famous for having cute slimes as part of their game advertisements. Oh, but you still attack. Squeak squeak, the slime tilted its cute head at Evan's words. Even now, it was spraying an extremely weak acid poison, damaging him. Based on the game, slimes give 1 damage per 5 seconds. It's too weak, but if it accumulates, it could be fatal to a child. If it was Evan, an ordinary 9-year-old child, he would have been subjected a terrible fate for adoring this cute slime. But this time, he knew what he had to do. Squeak. Goodbye, abominable slime. Evan clenched his fist as hard as he could. The slime screamed and struggled violently to get out of his grasp, but Evan crushed him harder and harder with his fist. Die. Die. Squeak. Squeak, squeak. Huh. Squeak. In the end, slime failed to withstand the pressure and died on of his grasp. A very feeble explosion was released upon its death, but in less than a second, it evaporated and flew away. Evan opened the window and to dissipate the smoke. A smile of joy uncontrollably came to his lips. It's possible. I'm all right now. Now that he knows that slime can die without much difficulty, it's time to study how to do this more efficiently. He has come up with a rough method. The basic summoning position of slime is above my left palm. So, adjust the summoning when I want it if I hold it as hard as you can. Alright, like this. Squeak. He summoned a second slime, and it was immediately and mercilessly crushed upon being summoned. The slime's cuteness has no effect anymore. 3 seconds, 4 seconds. Squeak. As slime's desperate scream grew smaller and smaller, Evan counted coolly. He was counting how long it would take for the slime to die. Squeak. 0.11 seconds. It's too slow. What an incompetent body. How could killing a little slime take 11 seconds? Evan clenched his teeth as he thought about it. But I still feel that very little of my mana has been used, and my HP seems to be unchanged. Alright, let's go on for now. In Yoma Great War 3, the physical reaction of the character's HP and MP consumption is shown briefly as animations. If HP falls below 50%, the character gets cold, and if it falls below 30%, it gets cold sweat. If the MP falls below 50%, The character gives goosebumps, and if it falls below 30%, the heart feels tight. I mean, it's okay to reach that. If each number falls below 10%, there will be more violent symptoms, but Evan did not mean to overdo it. Each number should be kept at least 30% or more. If I am out of the house, HP should keep over 50%. I need to remember these details in my daily life. First, he will do his best to do what he can now. Just keep squashing slime in his fists. Squeak. Squeak. Cue. From that moment on, Evan's specialized training began in earnest. His goal was to grasp harder and effectively deliver damage to slime, killing it quickly, then, summoning a new slime as soon as the first slime died, continuously. Oh, it's hard. Squeak. Of course, there were accidents such as slimes that were not caught on his hand upon being summoned, or slimes which have been summoned before the first one was thoroughly killed. Squeak. 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 But one thing is clear, his skills are getting better and better. In a short time, his posture was better, and his grip reminded him of a natural hunter. Squeak. 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 Soon, after his countless attempts, his technique has improved, and the duration to kill a slime was shorter. Squeak. Oh, did the level go up in the meantime? At one point, Evan tilted his head and wondered about his level. Unlike in the game where he can check the logs, Evan had no way of knowing if he had leveled up. Perhaps there was a possibility that he was just a master of repetitive tasks. Or, even though it was unbelievable, there was a possibility of acquiring a new ability, like an enforced grip? I see, this is why people don't notice the level of existence. If Evan, who knows about the level of existence, is not too confident about his growth, what about those who don't know it at all? Evan shook his head with profound enlightenment. In the meantime, he continued to summon slime and crush them under the pressure of his fist. It had been about 2 hours. Squeak. 9 seconds. All right, I reduced it to 9 seconds. I've become very good at this. Maybe it's okay to turn on automatic continuous summoning. No, that's still scary, so let's keep it the way it is for now. Suddenly, after achieving the 9-second kill, he felt a strain in his heart. No doubt, a physical signal is indicating that only 30% of MPs are left. Evan stopped moving. Slime summoning also stopped. But wait a minute. Come to think of it, his HP didn't drop even if his MP reached 30%. No, he didn't even feel that he has reached the 50% mark yet for HP. In fact, his body is in excellent condition now. Is this possible? I'm sure Mana will have recover faster than HP because of the necklace. The damage that slime does is undoubtedly weak. But with the number of slimes that he had touched, it would be normal for a 9-year-old Evan to feel some effects from the damage, at least. In other words, if Mana drops, HP should drop too. But why? Evan might have been a physical type rather than a Mana type. That's why HP growth is higher than MP. In the Yoma Great War, talents are classified. Magic Sword talent, Knight talent, etc. only. Recognizing the character's talent and developing its ability is a condition for success. A Mana-type character won't benefit too much from physical training and vice versa. Wait, but Evan had Magic Sword in the main episodes of the game. How is he a physical type? He cried out in frustration. The basics are wrong. Maybell ran in astonishment after hearing his cry. Sir, what's the matter? Master. Maybell. Evan clenched his teeth and composed himself as Maybell banged at the door. Nothing happened, nothing. But something definitely happened. It was now unclear how long Evan would go on the training. Chapter 5, Evan Desjardins, clenched his fist. 4. Lord Evan, are you up? Maybell, come back in 2 hours. No, why? I need time to think alone. Lord, Master ?1. Ever since he succeeded in getting the necklace from the Marquis and began slime training, Evan decided to go through his everyday life in an organized schedule. Squeak. First of all, when I wake up in the morning, I have full mana, so I start training right away. I need to wake up earlier. I don't want to waste time sleeping." That's how Evan Deschardin, the Marquis' sleepy son, who was known for sleeping a lot, started waking up 3 hours earlier daily. He makes sure he completes 8 hours of sleep, though. And then wash up and eat breakfast. Then, a simple exercise until Mana is fully recovered. Well, maybe I should start weight training. Squeak. Once he reaches the 30% threshold, it takes approximately 2 hours to recover his full mana. When mana is fully regained, he feels his heart heating up, then, mana slowly flows throughout his body. He had to rest regularly due to heavy mana consumption, but he does not get tired physically. He thought about weight training so he can use his physical strength. "I'm not an expert, but I've been doing my personal training for quite a while. The point is to do proper exercise without overdoing it. Weight training might be harmful at an early age. Still, if he pushes ahead, doing only specific exercises and being cautious about his body, he does not need to worry about adverse effects. He just needs to increase his existence level. The higher it goes, the healthier his body will become. Then, maybe if I apply modern exercises in this world." Squeak. Evan's heart throbbed over his unproven hypothesis. Maybe he can develop modern systematic weight training here, and make it a skill or something. As he is deep in thought about these things, he continued killing slimes every 9 seconds. Then mana recovers again, 2 hours of slime training. I'll decide the frequency of weight training based on my physical condition, and in my spare time. Yeah, let's write a manual. Squeak. Of course, he remembered essential things about the game, such as Evan's death. Still, he felt the need to organize all the information he knew about the series. From the creation myths of the Yoma War to the history of all kingdoms, the situation of the world, the treasures hidden, and the talented people existing in this world. Squeak. I have to remember everything. It's okay. I can do it. If he organizes this information, then he should easily know what to avoid or what to use in certain situations. Among the countless legends that live and breathe in the series of the Yoma Great War, he had to remember which will save or kill him. What's more, if all the scenarios go as he knows, it's not possible to survive. But now, I am not simply helping Evan, I am Evan. The Yoma Great War, which was experienced by Yoba in minutes, his previous life, is very similar to this world. Many things will be similar or the same, but he thought that he can't absolutely rely on data. That's why he had to record what happens in this world accurately, so he could compare and analyze the changes and prepare for the future, not to be overwhelmed by the wave of death that will come from all sides. Squeak. And then up there, well, what else? I just eat on time, and other times, slam training, weight training, and that's it. Thinking about it, Evan didn't have a schedule before. An 9-year-old boy doesn't need a plan. All he had to do was play like a child. But now I don't have time to waste that way. If I do what I did before, I'll only recreate what happened to Evan. I will never let that happen. Squeak. He shook his head, thinking of Evan Deschardin in the game. Evan appeared in the 3rd episode of the Yoma Great War 3. He was a handsome, loyal, charming young man who captured the attention of everyone who saw him. Aside from his character description, everything else was a mess. Even if there wasn't a flood of possible deaths for him, Evan was not in excellent condition. He was a typical weakling. Squeak. One such example was the case with the magic sword. At the beginning of the main episode, Evan is just outside the beginner's level, even though he is already 20 years old. The Marquis spoiled him too much, even though everyone knew that Evan needed to go into the dungeon when he reaches 18. Evan neglected his training, and when he reached 18, he entered the dungeon accompanied by a lot of knights, who were there to protect him. It had disastrous results. He didn't even get to clear the first floor. Squeak. When someone clears a floor on the dungeon, he would hear God's voice blessing him and increasing his dungeon level. Evan didn't hear the voice of God that day. He failed to achieve the expectation to clear the first floor. A required amount of contribution to the group is needed to get credit for clearing the floor, but Evan left everything to the knights, and thus, failed miserably. It took him 3 months to try again and finally clear the first level. He was such a pathetic man. But women chased after him. Squeak. Evan liked spending money, and he wanted to hang out with people. That's why he's always surrounded by so many people. It gradually aggravated his situation. Fortunately, he didn't pay much attention to alcohol or gambling, but he had a problem with women. He got really mixed up with all kinds of women, and it had already developed to an irreversible level at the beginning of the main episode. He had 3-digit quests, all involving those whom he had seduced. Squeak. How could Evan flirt with that many women? He shook his head, recalling the quest he had taken over in the past while playing the Yoma 3. A woman Evan flirted with will bring his death. He made up his mind, he won't flirt with women from now on. He won't even smile at them. Squeak. Whoa, my heart is tightened. Stop. He checked how long it took before he reached the 30% limit, 2 hours, a little improvement. The fact that the time he can continuously summon slime is increasing little by little means that his mana point is increasing. I am improving. It's such a small improvement, but what matters is he was growing step by step. He was pleased. Then, a great desire sprang up within him. I want to be stronger faster. He already knows how? By optimizing the schedule, he can reduce time waste and focus more on slime training. And if possible, add weight training. It's going to be a lot better than just grabbing the slime. Okay, the goal is to create weight training skills. Alright, let's start training right away. Evan clenched his fists with determination and ran straight to the yard. It was the middle of the day, and Maybelle caught him before he can get to the yard. He was made to wash his face and go to breakfast. The second master is a little strange these days was the topic among certain servants. My master is like. He told me not to enter the room, and he hates when I try to look at his notebook. He told me not to come unless he calls me. We used to be close, he followed me like I'm his sister. Madame, the maid who wants to be anonymous, started talking. Maybelle, you should stop. It's good to feel friendly to Master Evan, but if you cross the line, it's over. Then, you will get fired by Marquis. Anyway, I think Master Evan has changed. He used to play around in the hallway and destroyed a few expensive painting and vase, but that doesn't happen these days. A male servant brutally called out the name of a maid who wished to remain anonymous, before adding his own observation. Master Evan is really weird these days. As Maybelle said, I don't know what he is doing in the room alone. I rarely see him in the mansion anymore, said another maid, whom we will call Maid B. Don't you know? The second master, he has been in the yard a lot lately. He's doing weird poses there. I feel like he is exercising, said another servant, male servant B. Maid M. Maybelle couldn't stand it anymore and burst into tears. My master is acting weird. Apparently, when I had a fever at that time. Hey, somebody calm Maybelle down. She's going to be in big trouble. I've heard he keeps opening and closing his left hand, like a baby. Leave him alone. Children usually do things that adults don't understand. Like I don't understand what Maybelle is doing now. Maybelle, if you keep working for Marquis's family. With the servants chattering, the lounge door burst open, and Servant C came in. He was panting, and his eyes were wide open as he told them what he saw. Hey, did Master Evan just No, I don't know, Master Evan. He just lifted the rock in the yard. He said he was doing it instead of dumbbells, what do you call it? It was a small rock, but it wasn't something a child could carry. Only, male servant shouted back at him. And what the hell is dumbbell? Then, he turned to his colleagues. Okay, Maid B, you keep holding Maybelle. Servant B, you take Servant C to the priest and ask him to fix his eyes and ears. Okay. What is it? What are you doing? Why are you holding me? 10 days have passed since Evan started slime training. He didn't realize it, but his body was changing more quickly than he thought. Now, he could kill slime in just 7 seconds. Hi. This is Novel Admire. Thanks for the visit. Chapter 6, Evan Desjardins, Clenched Fist, 5. Do you like sweets, Evan? Lady Redine Desjardins, the first wife of the Marquis, asked Evan sweetly. With her black hair and green eyes that seemed to be made of melted emeralds, she looked very beautiful. For reference, while the other NPCs at her age looked old in the game, the Marquis' wife remained to look young. The most prevalent theory was that the graphic designer left, and the developers had no choice but to keep the young appearance because there was no design for an older-looking Redine. Evan thought otherwise and believed there was a secret reason for this. It's delicious, he remarked. He was spending time with his mother. Huh, thank goodness. Eat a lot. These cookies were imported from Madoka. In the past, Evan used to smother his mother every 4 days, asking for sweets. However, these days, something seemed to change with her child. He only visited her during tea time only once every 10 days. Evan, what are you doing these days? You seem so busy. You don't even have time to see your mother. I'm sorry, he. Evan tried to evade the question with a cute laugh. He couldn't say that he was trying to train and survive. However, compared to the Marquis, Lady Redine was more immune to her son's charm and narrowed her eyes and began to interrogate him further. I heard that you were staying alone in your room for quite some time. Ugh! Artifact is in the room. He had an excuse prepared if his cute laugh didn't work. Evan showed the Marisol's necklace around his neck. Lady Redine immediately noticed that the green gem at the center of the necklace was faintly shining. Oh, my goodness! Evan, you awakened the artifact. That's an artifact that no one in our family could handle. She clapped her hand with amazement. It's great you awakened it. Explore and observe as you're doing now, you'll master it little by little. Well. She knew that the Marquis had given Evan the necklace, but she didn't expect that her child would awaken it. It's a pleasure to know that her child has a talent, but she couldn't help getting worried for him. I don't know what artifact it is, can I leave it to Evan? What if it's a dangerous artifact? If Evan gets hurt because of mishandling it? She was in agony. However, the necklace still hung on her child's neck, and Evan looked unbothered by it. It seems that he is handling it well. Huh. Eventually, she decided that it would not be very good to take the artifact away from Evan. In this way, the dangerous artifact that took Evan's life at least once in the game stayed with him. She focused on other news she heard. But Evan, these days you are in the yard. What's it like to be doing weird gymnastics? Oh, that's another difficult question to answer. Evan again smiled vaguely at the question of his wife. Strange gymnastics, of course, was modern weight training. At first, he had no choice but to do muscle training without any help, and it was difficult. Now, he has gotten used to it. Surprisingly, after several days of repetition, his body remembered the movements, and he was able to work more efficiently. This convinced him that he was a warrior type. His mother continued with her questions. In the past, didn't you usually go around the mansion or go out in the city to see the shops? Of course, it's a bad time to go out now with the dungeon backflow, but it will be normalized soon. I am doing good gymnastics for my body. Gymnastics to be healthy. That means you're going to train yourself physically? But didn't you say before that you will be a great wizard? Of course, at one point, Evan was focused on becoming a wizard. But once he realized his strengths, it's so easy to make a decision. Thinking about it, he can join the battle between the main character and King Yoma if he grows strong enough. Evan, why are your eyes dead? Our cute son is so serious. Mother, I think people have particular fields where they could excel at. If I try to force myself being a wizard, I feel uncomfortable, by watching other mages. My 9-year-old son suddenly spoke like an old man. Evan was embarrassed and quickly sipped at the cup of tea. The Marquis' wife was amazed that her son now liked the taste of black tea. Evan is acting different, she thought. Meanwhile, Evan was thinking of other things. He was thinking about the dozen of endings where Evan was poisoned. There was an ending where he died while taking tea with his fiancée. He died on the spot, crying pitifully. It was really miserable. Project number 3 should start soon, he decided. However, it would take him some time. First of all, he must complete Project 1. Level up. Do whatever you want for now, his mother told him. You'll have less time to play next year. You have to enjoy your freedom. Ah? Evan's eyes widened at the words of his mother. She continued. Aristocratic classes. Yes, he thought and frowned at himself. How could he have forgotten about it? When he reaches age 10, Evan, like his older brother Eric, will undergo a reasonable level of education suited for aristocrats. History, language, math, geography, and of course, swordsmanship and magic. Don't look like that, Evan. After all, you're the second son. You won't have to do as much as your older brother, but it doesn't mean you don't need to help him. You have to learn in order to perform our family's duty. The family's duty she was referring to was about the dungeon. Anyone born in the Sheridan family must enter the dungeon periodically to inspect and explore as well as achieve certain goals. It is based on the spirit of noblesse oblige, which states that nobles must understand the dungeons better than anyone else because dungeons are under their management. I know it very well, he thought. Evan enters the dungeon at 18 years old and failed miserably. After 2 years, the main character entered their city, and the story began in earnest. At that point, Evan was only capable of reaching the 4th floor. The second son of the Marquis. What a shame. In the rest of the story, the main character will need Evan's help for a quest and builds a friendship with him. Soon, Evan dies. I know, Mother. I will study hard next year. Okay. So right now, you have to play so much so you won't have any regrets next year. It is important for a child to play. Yeah. Evan responded cheerfully to his mother, but his thoughts were far away. He was planning ahead. For the remainder of the year, he must master slime training to a level where it would be unnoticed by anyone. He should be able to continue slime training while in class. After tea time, Evan returned to his room and resumed slime training with his left hand while he held the manual with his right hand. It contained the overall story of the Omagh Great War III, the historical events, important artifacts, etc. He made it with such detail that its quality is valuable enough to be sold. Reading through the pages he wrote on, Evan realized that this was the sum of the years he devoted to playing the Omagh Great War III. He felt a little sad about it, but it's not that important now. As he read through, he thought about starting project number 2. It was inevitably parallel with project number 1, as project 1 was a lifelong exercise to level up. Let's see, checking in the character category. As he skimmed through the pages that took 10 days to fill out, his left hand steadily crushed slimes at his current rate of 7 seconds. Evan's handwriting was too ugly. Fortunately, no one gets to see this manual except him. Okay, this is it. The list of the scariest characters. Evan stopped at a page titled Most Important. There should be an appearance of one of the main characters around this time. Venom Spear? No. Blood Witch? She's very pretty and very strong, but I wouldn't want to know what she's doing now, and she's scary in the first place. Don't want to meet her. Yes. I found it. In Omagh Great War III, there were a few strong characters that were almost invincible with regard to power. Evan, a maniac when it comes to the game, remembers this information clearly. No one else could have done it. Silent K, Knight. Although he is the same age as Evan, he is among the strongest of the strong and is about 1,000,000 times more powerful than Evan. His assassination ability was to wield black daggers as he melts in the dark, tearing off monsters' necks in a flash. The strongest skill of all. Evan knew it was childish, but he still fluttered as he read the description. Awesome. So cool. In particular, K/Knight instead of just saying knight or knight is so cool. There is something in him that stimulates the sensibility of adolescence sleeping in the hearts of all men. He is the coolest character. If I had been born as Silent K, Knight, not Evan, I wouldn't have been killing slimes like this right now. However, Evan quickly reflected on his words. As a player of the Yoma Great War, he knew very well that being strong does not mean having a blessed life. Silent K, Knight, in particular. But this time, it will be different, Silent K, Knight. As Evan's fate has changed, so will yours. He thought about Silent K/Knight's history. Dark skin and black hair. He rarely appeared in the entire series, and he had an unfortunate past, adding to his depressive aesthetic. He is also a character with an overwhelming female base in the series fandom. He was born in the dungeon city of Sheridan. One spring, while he was 11 years of age, he lost his parents during the massive dungeon reflux. The orphan was sold in a slave market. Foreign mercenaries bought him for a very low price, and thus started his unfortunate childhood of trouble and getting inside dungeons. Massive dungeon reflux. It was. Right now. The Silent K, Knight, the strongest assassin, ranking within the top 5 of the strongest characters in the Yoma Great War, the coolest character is now in the city's slave market. I already received my birthday gift. This amount can buy anything I want. Evan Deschardin, an extra in Yoma Great War, has a higher probability of death than any other character. However, he is also the second son of the Marquis of a dungeon city. Only, that means he had a lot of money. That was the only advantage he had over Silent K, Knight. Just wait for a little. I'm coming. After getting the information he wanted, he covered his manual and took his wallet from the safe. Then, he yelled out, "Maybelle, let's go shopping." After 10 days of training and writing, Evan is now convinced that he is strong enough to survive shopping. It was the moment project number 2 began. He called the project Bodyguard. Chapter 7, Evan Deschardin, Gets People, 1. 7 days ago, Maybelle, a 13-year-old apprentice maid of the Marquis of Sheridan, was shocked by the words of her master, Evan Deschardin. "I will not laugh as much as possible in the future," the boy said. "Why? I can't believe that he came from the Marquis, who looked like a gorilla. He was born pretty, more handsome than the Marquis by 100 times. It is a universal loss if he does not laugh. What happened to him? Did he lose his facial muscles when he fell?" At some point in agony, Maybelle's brain struck lightning. "I won't smile at you in the future." That's it. That's when Evan said that he didn't like her. As I think about it now, I become more certain. That day, Evan started stopping me from getting inside his room. And what's more, he started doing strange poses in the yard. It was all a sign that he didn't like me. At that moment, Maybelle decided. I need to stop his anger against me. I'm going to make Evan laugh again. I'm going to make him fall in love with me and make me his exclusive maid. I hate you. You need to hate me, too. Evan trampled on Maybelle's resolve. They were sitting in a carriage going to the city. "I will never make you my exclusive maid. I don't want to get stabbed," he said. "Who is stabbing who?" She was confused. "Maybelle, think carefully," he kindly explained to her, smiling. "Let's say you have a boyfriend." "Yeah." "The boyfriend had an affair." "Yeah." "Well, there is a knife in your hand. Are you going to stab your boyfriend?" "Yeah." "So, I hate you. I'm only 13 years old. It's scary to be this positive about something that hasn't happened yet. That will only happen if I got a boyfriend, and I will never stab my master." "Oh. Are you trying to say? Wow. You're 9 years old and already this bold," she exclaimed. But to be honest, it was a little exciting. "I'm not asking you to be my girlfriend. I will never ask you to," Evan said. "In addition, how confident you are to already assume that you will be cheating on me. Okay, I'm not talking to you anymore." Evan shook his head and turned away from Maybelle, who was consumed with fantasy. Gradually, the city that has been affected severely by the dungeon reflux came to their view. Collapsed buildings, roads. People are trying to recover a scrap between the rubble. It was a far cry to what the city once was. The number of people has also decreased, Evan observed. "I don't think a lot would come in until the city has been restored. The knights hired dungeon explorers as mercenaries, and they are still in search of any missing monsters. Master, Maybelle spoke, as I told you earlier, it is not a good time for shopping. But what are you going to buy? A person. A person. Uck. Slave market. Bingo. In the dungeon city of Shuden, there was a slave market that was legally operated by the state. Here, they sold people. People of countries who lost to wars, captives, those who were sold for debt, orphans, unrecognized races. Human greed has reached such depths that the state has chosen to run the slave market and regulate it since they could not completely stop it. Slaves must be purchased with a clear purpose, guaranteed rights, and at least a minimal amount of dignity. Well, I think the state was half successful, Evan thought. The country's slave management system has certainly provided better conditions for many of the slaves. In the state's eyes, they did a good job of ensuring that slaves are not forced into unwanted sex trafficking or as part of human experiments. Of course, if you are a nobleman or a merchant who has a lot of money, it is possible to forge slave documents. If you take slaves and leave them on the battlefield or inside a dungeon, no one could stop you. Perfect management is impossible, unless for someone who has very powerful magic. Actually, there was one in Yoma Great War 3 who could probably have the magic skills to do it. A very, very famous character, not only because of her appearance but because of her powerful abilities. Of course, there was an ending where Evan was killed by this character. Where could the bloody witch be now? She's probably a kid just like me now, Evan thought. If he feels like it, he can try to locate all the elements that could be harmful to him and stop it from the source. Evan felt like a god rather than the second son of the Marquis. Suddenly, Maybelle let out a scream. You are going to the slave market to find a new maid. You will abandon me and put that maid next to you. A maid who is prettier, calmer, and more mature than me. Evan thought Maybelle was pretty enough. She was a charming girl with a soft brown bob cut, round blue eyes, and a slender neck. Honestly, he can't believe that she was just an extra. Isn't it a little strange to say abandon? I just said I wouldn't make you my exclusive maid. I knew it. Master, please, I'll do well. Make me an exclusive maid. She tearfully pleaded. Maybelle grabs her crotch and puts her knees together as she cried. Evan sighed as he looked at her. You seem to have a little twisted purpose. And I told you, I'm not going to get a maid right now. Then. At that time, the carriage stopped, and a knight came to open the door for Evan. Good morning, Master. We have arrived. In an advanced game such as the Yoma Great War 3, there was no common face CG. Evan looked at the knight's face and immediately felt comfortable. It was another extra, a knight named Dine. Thank you, Dine. Let's go, Master. Shopping for a slave was different than just walking inside a store and looking around. Although slave markets operate legally, these places are not located in the middle of the city. It was located on a side street. Are you sure you want one, Master? You didn't get approval from the Marquis. The escort knight couldn't hide his anxiety as Evan stepped down the carriage, eyes wandering. Dine, you're here to protect me. Of course, yes, Master, but this is not a good place for your education environment. I know how this world works. I didn't come here to look at them like animals at the zoo, or to simply show off my money. I came to save the people I need. If you need someone who would teach you martial arts, the Marquis will have one for you if you just ask. Of course, the Marquis will give Evan someone to teach him martial arts. It was the same in the game. Still, Evan died a lot. Now, he will make sure he gets someone else. Someone who will not allow him to die. I want to pick them out myself, he replied to his escort. Huh. Indeed. Nowadays, I hear a lot of servants and maids grumble that Master is different, but now I know. You've changed a lot, I'm impressed. Probably, when the servants and maids say he's different meant something else than what the escort knight sees as different, but Evan decided not to tackle it. He had suffered enough conversation with Maybelle inside the carriage. Oh, please don't have a child that's pretty enough to catch your eyes. Maybelle's eyes were red from crying. You'll see it for yourself. Did you think you'll just be waiting here? Evan told her. Okay. She jumped down, excited. After leaving the carriage to the soldiers, the three of them stepped into the building. Each had different thoughts. The head of the exchange approached them. It is an exchange where slave traders register and trade slaves. The head looked like an aristocrat, even if he was not a noble. Nice to meet you. I am the exchange manager. Oh. Master Evan? The head looked at the sight before him. A knight and a girl dressed in a maid's outfit. With them was the second son of the Marquis, one with the same name as their city, Sheridan. It was impossible not to recognize the child. The head of the exchange bowed his head as he greeted him. Why did you come here yourself, master? If you had called, we would have brought them to you. I'd like to see them myself. Huh. Yes. But we have not prepared. It's fine. I like it as it is. Evan cut him off. I want to see children of a similar age to me. I don't think we have. I know you do. Are there children who lost their parents in this disaster? The head of the exchange glanced at the knight. It is not something that a 9-year-old would want, so he wanted to confirm it with his escort. The knight shook his head firmly as if to say he was indeed just an escort. It would be Evan who will decide. Eventually, the head of the exchange sighed. When he spoke again, he was more straightforward and forceful. They sold themselves to survive. Some of them do it, master. All these children were. Somehow, they may not fit what the master. That means that all of those children are desperately trying to live. Evan's words shocked the head of the exchange. This, too, was something he never expected to hear from a child. I don't have to explain myself to you, Evan said. Please lead me to them. Okay. The head of the exchange couldn't say anything anymore. He immediately called a person, whispered something, then led Evan, Maybelle, and Dine to a large room. Inside, the escort knight whispered to Evan. Mr. Master, I understand your noble intention, but if you take too many of them, it may be hard for the Marquis to manage. You don't have to worry, Dine. I only need one person. Mr. Master, a pretty girl, would be. What I need is a boy, Maybelle, a boy. Can you consider again before you decide, Master Evan? Oh, this is really annoying. The head of the exchange served them tea and went to the back. After a few moments, he reappeared. Here, Master. These are the children you said you want. I selected children under the age of 12. Several children followed the head of the exchange into the room, but Evan couldn't help but notice that the head of the exchange looked sweaty and panicking. There are some children you haven't brought in, he realized and said as much. Young master? I said I would like to see it as it is. Evan spoke resolutely and looked around the children who had been called. Most of the children looked disgusting. One of them was pretty, but you can take them all out. I need to see them. Young master. Well, come on. Are you going to make me say it twice? The head of the exchange froze with shock. He hesitated for a moment before opening his mouth. But these children were born weak. It doesn't matter. I want to see them. I have no choice. The exchange manager admitted that Evan was a formidable guest. Most of the buyers in the slave market trusted the head's suggestion, but it seemed like the young boy has different standards in choosing his slave. The young slaves lined up and left the room with the head of the exchange. When the head came back, he only had 2 children with him. They are a little dirty. There are bruises, but it's okay, though. These children are smaller than the others. As I said before, children with congenital weakness are. Dine. Evan opened his mouth at the sight of the 2 children in front of him. I said I just need one person. One of them had dark hair and dark skin, around the same age as Evan. Despite his young age, his beauty was already obvious. Silent K, Knight. Forget that. I realized I need 2, Evan told his escort. Only, the other child had black hair and dark red eyes, darker than blood. Pale white skin. The child's hair was cut short, like a man, but she can't hide her beauty. I will need both of them. Like the Silent K, Knight, She was ranked in the top 5 strongest characters in Yoma Great War 3. The most powerful sorceress. The one who gave death to Evan in one of the endings. In front of Evan was the young bloody witch. Chapter 8, Evan Desjardins, Gets People, 2. Rookie. It's a unique concept that emerges in the Yoma Great War, and is a newly emerged human subspecies that was God-chosen. Therefore, this word describes not only a new person but an entirely new race. They were mutations of ordinary humans. Slowly, they are spreading little by little amongst the average humans, but their existence only started to get attention in the latter stages of Yoma because they are weak. No, let's correct it. Rookies have a naturally weak body. Their physical growth was slower than the average person. There was no physical advantage over normal humans at all. However, there were exceptions who became ridiculously strong, such as the Bloody Witch and Silent K, Knight. By the time of Yoma Great War 4, the protagonists are rookies, and they alone had the power to reach the peak. Those who have gotten strong despite being born in a weak body. What these rookies have in common is that by luck, they have survived in a dungeon, and received a dungeon level rise. This is their mutation. They receive twice the level of blessing in their dungeon levels. The deeper they go, the higher they climb, the more these rookies become monsters. This is why they were called the God-chosen race. The weak physique they got when they were born was their penalty, to somehow balance the ridiculous buff they receive once they are capable of surviving inside dungeons. Evan thought the penalty was stupid. Because of that penalty, the majority of rookies die before they can even get to a dungeon. Also, the buff only starts to get ridiculous when a rookie clears the 5th floor. How would someone with a weaker body survive the 1st floor? In fact, the majority of the rookies who discovered their potential went inside dungeons, only to die terribly on the 1st floor. Only a very small number of outstanding rookies can make it. It was as if God's purpose was to screen the rookies to get a few with fantastic abilities, at the expense of the lives of the others. Evan thought before that it wasn't a fair rule for rookies. Now, he's living the game as his reality. But I have reached this far, he thought. I can't give up now. In the game, it was hinted that the Bloody Witch and Silent K, Knight suffered countless difficulties. Detailed explanations are omitted, however, so Evan could only guess. In the game, considering the countless difficulties they went through, the Bloody Witch made the whole world her enemy, and Silent K, Knight also had a lot of blood on his hands. In the game, these children suffered so much. It will not happen this time. I'll take both of them, Evan told the head of the exchange. Are you sure, Master Evan? Of course, both kids are only looking good because. Here. Evan handed his wallet to the head of the exchange, even without asking for the purchase price of the two. The head of the exchange took it, looked at the contents, and opened his mouth in shock. This child is the son of the Marquis, so I knew he had a lot of money, but this is beyond my imagination. He thought. No, Master. These children are worth half the price of the other. This is too much, too much. I have no intention of discussing the value of these children with you. But if you think that way, then I want you to grant me 2 small requests. I'm listening, Master. Evan chuckled at the head of the exchange, who became politer after being given a huge sum. First, children born innately weak like these children. When you find such children, I want you to let me know. Oh, and I'm not asking you to kidnap them. You mean bad products? No, apologies, Master. It was the wrong word choice. The eyes of Evan quickly turned cold when the head said bad product, forcing the head of the exchange to immediately apologize and step back, even if he knew that it was a 9-year-old boy in front of him. Was this presence passed down from generation to generation in noble families? Impressive, the head of the exchange thought. Meanwhile, Evan continued speaking. Secondly, this is our own secret. You should not tell anyone, not even my father. Are we clear? All right, Master. I will keep that in mind. I'll do that. Really? Then, I think we can be good friends. Evan reached out one hand. The head of the exchange was surprised at a 9-year-old boy offering him a handshake after a deal is closed, but he took it and bowed slightly. Then, "I look forward to seeing you again, Master Evan." "Sure. We're going." Evan turned to his companions and the two children. "Follow me, you two. I'll tell you more in detail later." And so, the sale was completed satisfactorily. Maybelle looked dissatisfied as she followed Evan, while Dine looked somewhat emotional. Maybelle whispered to Dine. "Two boys. What do you think Master is?" "I can hear you, Maybelle," Evan spoke without looking back. "And the little one is a girl." "What? Really?" Both Maybelle and Dine were surprised. They immediately looked at the child closer. "Whoa, it's strange that I didn't notice," Dine said, bewildered. "She's so pretty. I thought she was just a pretty little boy." Maybelle said, near tears. "A maid to replace me, huh? How many times should I tell you that's not what I'm going to do?" Evan let Maybelle climb into the carriage. Dine hesitated where to place the two children, but Evan didn't seem to care and let the children climb up the 4-seater carriage with him. "As well as a maid to replace me, it is good. How many times do you say that you're not going to do it anyway?" Evan went on the wagon ride after quieting Maybelle. Dine wondered what to do with the two boys, but Evan did not hesitate at all, and they also went into the carriage. The children's bodies and clothes looked cleaned because the head of the exchange had them cleaned thoroughly. They had some bruises, however. Evan smiled sadly as he looked at the children who was avoiding his gaze. Silent K, Knight and Bloody Witch. They were always the characters voted with the highest charisma in Yoma Great War. They seemed so different from how they looked in the game, Evan thought. Of course, both of them have just lost their parents. It was as if the sky collapsed on them. "Don't worry, we won't hurt you," Evan spoke as gently as he could. "I just want to know your names." "Name?" "Yes, first name. How should I call you?" Surprisingly, it was the Blood Witch that responded first. Evan nodded, and she mumbled in a tiny voice. "Billows? They called me Lua." The other child found his voice, seemingly encouraged by Billows. "I'm Shine. It's the first time I heard her speak since she came to the slave market." Shine. His name was Shine. Evan almost laughed. It's a completely unfitting name for his character. Evan restrained himself. If he laughs now, it will be over. He will lose these children's trust. He held the gentle smile he had worn when asking for their names. "I'm Evan Desjardins. Call me Evan, please, Shine and Billows." "Can I ask you one thing?" Shine spoke once more. Evan thought it was good that he started speaking, but when he looked at him, Shine looked angry. "Why did you buy defective products like us? You're the same age as I am, you should be old enough to know. Did you buy us as playthings you can tease and harass?" The flame burning in Shine's eyes was intense. Just by looking at it, Evan could guess how the other children have treated them inside the slave market. "How will I do this?" Evan closed his head and composed himself. From now on, he has to choose his words and actions carefully, if he wanted the Silent K, Knight and the Blood Witch to trust him. Evan opened his eyes, and both Billows and Shine looked intently at his purple eyes. "The world is not fair, Shine. Right? I know. I am tired of it. Fortunately, I was lucky to be born as the second son of the Marquis. I am happy because I am blessed. But how would you feel if I tell you that you were also blessed?" Suddenly, Shine snapped at Evan. "Are you kidding me? I am nothing like you. I was born poor, with this weak body. What blessing are you talking about?" Evan remained calm and responded casually. "Talent. You have talent that no one else has." "Nonsense. You can keep ignoring what I say if that's what makes you feel comfortable. But will you be satisfied with that?" Nonsense words. Shine kept grumbling. However, a tiny voice joined in. "What talent? Do I also have it?" Billow's wide red eyes stared at me as she spoke. "She's so young. So cute." Evan remembered that he wasn't supposed to laugh, but he can't help but smile at her appearance. "Both of you have it." It's a talent that makes you too ridiculously strong. But my mom said that she was sorry for giving birth to a weak child like me. Belos looked down, almost crying. Shine also butted in. My mother and I. Evan cut them off. Your mothers don't have to be sorry for having you. Your talent is not so easily recognizable, but I can assure you, you are stronger than anyone else in the world. You are weak right now because we are still in the process of preparation. How do you know that? How can you recognize my talent while I don't even know what it is? Even my mom and dad didn't know. How? Shine clenched his fist as he replied. His eyes were filled with tears as he remembered his parents. Evan sighed and responded. I have a talent, too. My talent is to recognize genius. I promise you, you are special. A talent to recognize genius. Shine seemed to consider it. Of course, Evan lied. He couldn't tell them that he had seen the future. But the innocent Belos bit his bait. Her tiny hands, which had been clutching Shine's sleeves, held Evan's clothes this time as she asked him. Do I really have it? Of course. I can prove it. Well, we need to train for about 3 years. I can prove it to you if you follow my instructions in those 3 years. If the results are disappointing, you can just leave my side. We can't do that. We're slaves. Shine reminded him in a sulky manner. In the name of Evan Desjardins, no one would stop you if you choose to leave me after 3 years. However, if the result is as I said, then you two should stay by my side and follow my will. I'm not a philanthropist. I have a purpose for buying both of you. This time, Shine seemed to have lost his words and stayed silent. Belos still clutched Evan's sleeves. So, what do you want to do? Will you believe me and follow me? Will you give me a chance to prove your talent? Will you walk your fate with me? Belos nodded without hesitation, while Shine gave a small, quick nod. Believe. Let's see. Shine muttered, with his voice cracking. I want to believe it. I want to believe it. They always told me they were sorry. They always told me they were sorry. Dad always told me. Shine was overwhelmed by thoughts and felt tears welling up. Evan tried to soothe him with a firm voice. 3 years from now, your parents will be proud. They will be grateful. You will get stronger and stronger, and they will be happy that they gave birth to a special talent. I am certain. Only, really, then it would be great. Shine couldn't endure it anymore and started crying. Belos did, too. Evan looked around helplessly, but Mabel turned away. When we arrive at the mansion, I promise I'll take revenge on Mabel, Evan thought, as he put his arms around the children. The two began to cry harder as if they have been waiting for his arms to hold them. As the crying went on, Dine stopped the carriage to check what happened. He was amazed at what he found. Evan was smiling bitterly with his hands around the children, comforting them. I was successful in getting these two, Evan thought, but right now, they are the ones who needed my protection. Chapter 9, Evan Desjardins, Gets People, 3. Upon arriving at the mansion, Evan tried to start a full-fledged story with the two, but the servants and maids who met the party dragged Shine and Belos away as soon as they saw the children. Dine quietly explained to Evan why. It is standard procedure to thoroughly search the bodies of those who enter the mansion and make the children as clean as possible. By the way, how are you going to use them? I'm thinking of putting them close to me. As my exclusive servants for now. But I have more use for them later. Even the girl? Mabel joined in. Mabel, you be quiet, or I'll send you to the dungeon. Even without Belos, you're not my exclusive maid. Dine expressed his concern in a serious voice while Evan struggled with Mabel. I heard from the outside what Master has said to the children. It was admirable. At your age, you know how to bend people's minds. The two of them will never betray you. But Master, those children will eventually find out that. I never lied to those children, Dine, Evan shrugged as he replied. They will be really strong. You'll see in 3 years. If you say so, Master. Let's get inside and eat. I'll tell the servants to send them to you as soon as they are ready. When Shine and Billos returned, they looked clean and were wearing clean uniforms. The uniforms were of the perfect size, and the children looked very pretty in them. Their bruises were also gone. It was possible that the mansion's priest treated them. "Oh, you're here. Cool. Very pretty." "Yeah," he met them excitedly. But of them had traces of tears in their eyes, but now they seemed to have calmed down. Billos approached him and immediately held onto his clothes. If Maybelle was here, she would surely have something to say, but luckily, she wasn't. Evan was alone with the children. Before Evan could say anything else, Shine began to talk to him. "You said earlier, we have something you want. After our talents are proven, we are yours. What will we do here? Can we serve you as your servants?" Squeak. Evan was deeply moved by Shine's passion. He nodded. "Squeak, there's only one thing I'll need you to do," he said. "Just protect me." "You. Will we call you Master?" They seemed to have received brief training from the servants before they were sent here. Evan honestly didn't think that these children should be bound by their rules as the other servants. However, if he treats them differently, it may look suspicious for the other servants. Evan decided not to change it. "Squeak, yes. Call me Master. But we're just children. How can we protect you?" Evan shook his head. Shine couldn't seem to understand. Why would the second son of the Marquis need further protection? "You are going to be incredibly strong," he reminded them. "I want you to protect me with that ability. Stay attached to me, stay close to me, prevent risks. That's the only thing I want from you." Squeak. It sounds very simple, but it was a task that these two would keep forever. Shine and Billos gave up their lives the moment they sold themselves to slavery. Being chosen to serve the Marquis' son was the best thing that could happen to them. Shine was quiet for a moment, then asked Evan a question. "Perhaps. Will you be in a dangerous situation in the future?" Evan nodded. "You're smart. That's right. It will be so. That's why I need you." To Shine, Evan spoke like a prophet who had seen the future through divine revelation. He was speechless. From the beginning, he was curious as to why Evan knew they were in the slave market, even if the manager didn't show them. Not only did he confidently say that Shine and Billos, whom everyone ignored as weaklings, are going to be incredibly stronger. He also knew about a great danger coming in the future. Obviously, he is something else. He is not just a master who has a lot of money. Squeak. Shine raised his hand and pointed at Evan's left hand. In it, slime repeatedly appeared about every 7 seconds, getting killed by his grip. He couldn't stand it anymore. It was an important conversation, but the slimes were very noisy. "What is that?" "This is my personal training. It's a secret to other people here in the mansion, but I'm showing it to you because you will be with me in the future." Billos also seemed interested in the slime. "It looks so soft. I want to do it, too." With her current power, it was possible that even one of these slimes could kill her, so Evan won't let her. He stroked her head and smiled. "Don't worry, Billos, you'll be able to easily catch even more terrifying monsters than these later on." Now, in that sense. Evan changed the topic to soothe Billos. "I have told you what I want, now it's my turn to listen to what you want." "What we want?" Squeak. Evan thought he was really good at bringing that topic. He wants to know what these children wanted as early as now, so they could not ask for more in the future. Unfortunately, Shine and Billos were too young to detect his exploitation. "I want to wear warm clothes, eat until I'm full, and sleep well under a roof," Shine answered. "I want the same." Billos added. "I don't like to be hungry." Evan shook his head. "No, those are your basic rights. Let's move one to a higher level of desire, shall we? I'm willing to listen to everything you want. I'm the second son of the Marquis. You can speak freely." Squeak. The children were silent as if they had no clue what he's saying. He sighed. "You will not be hungry, and you will sleep comfortably. Then, what else do you want to do, Shine?" Shine closed his eyes. His fists clenched tightly. He gritted his teeth. "Monsters. Monsters? I want to kill all the monsters. All those who brutally killed my mother and father, I will kill them all. Evan smiled bitterly. Shine said it with a blazing determination that Belos instinctively grasped Evan's sleeves in fear. I was right. I guessed it was a value that was formed since he was a child, Evan thought. Evan was optimistic about Shine's vengeance. In the game, the Silent K, Knight was known for his hatred of all monsters. He was treated as a necessary evil and was barely looked at as a human. He slaughtered many humans, too, but the number of monsters he killed was incomparable. If someone could treat him as a human, if someone could influence him. No, this doesn't matter anymore. It will be as you wish, Shine. But in order for you to be strong, you have to go into the dungeon. Squeak, the dungeon? Won't I die there? I'm too weak. You will not die there as long as you follow as I say. Never. At the end of Evan's words, Shine again closes his eyes and seemed to be deep in thought. Then, to everyone's surprise, he suddenly knelt in front of Evan. He lifted his head and looked up at Evan, with eyes as dark as obsidian, and declared, "If that is the case, if I can come to get my revenge, I will kill all of them for you. Are you sure? Aren't you wasting your life at a very young age? I am old enough to decide. I'll go through the dungeon with you." Shine's eyes glowed with poison. Evan smiled at him and pulled him up. "Good. Then, do as you please." "Thank you, Master." Squeak, "Then what about you, Belos? What do you want to do?" Evan was a little nervous at this one. If the Silent K, Knight was devoted to killing monsters in the game, the Blood Witch was committed to destroying humanity. She was not a monster or a demon, but she was more devastating than anything else. In fact, one of the main quests was to defeat the Blood Witch. It was a difficult quest to reach and more difficult to complete. In the game, Evan had a storyline which led him to flirt with the Blood Witch. If this was successfully completed, the Blood Witch's speed would be slower, so everyone praised Evan for doing it. However, even if he helped everyone, Evan dies in the process. Now, this sweet and innocent little girl. How could she become a crazy witch who wanted to kill all human beings? I do not know, Belos answered after a while. In that simple answer, Evan's worries stopped. I hate being starved. I want to be strong. I don't know what I want to do. Nothing, I don't know. At that point, Evan stopped summoning slime. He bowed a little, meeting Belos' eye level, and said in a kind tone, "It's okay, Belos. Belos will be an extraordinary adult, but she is still a child now." He remembered her crying in the carriage. The image of the little girl who was unfortunate. He will be her guide. Belos stared at Evan with her red eyes. "Okay?" Her hand firmly held his sleeves. He carefully put his hand over her hand as he spoke to her. "Belos, you're only 7 years old now. There's a lot to know. It's not your fault. So, whatever it is, take it slow, and when you know, tell me, okay? Okay. Tell me when it's time. Whatever it is, I'll help you get it." "Really?" "Sure." Beloy's eyes widened slightly. Evan proudly stood up. Actually, he wanted to do the same caring bluff with Shine, but Shine was already crazy at 9 years old. Only, he had a terrifying voice when he said, "I'm going to kill them all." Evan shivered slightly before he spoke to them once more. "As I said before, I am the Marquis' son. I can get whatever I want for my precious bodyguards." "Huh, I will try hard." Belos nodded. Evan smiled at the innocent child's reaction. If Maybelle saw him, she'd probably just laugh at him. Well, then. The negotiations reached a satisfactory end. Evan exclaimed vigorously, "From now on, I will prepare a special training for both of you. The final goal is to clear the dungeon." Chapter 10, Evan Deschardin Gets People, 4. Evan didn't intend to let them kill slimes as he did. This is because the level of existence of rookies does not grow well, and even if it grows, the resulting changes are minimal. In short, the level of existence for them is useless. But that doesn't mean that there is no way for rookies to get stronger. The basis of absolute strength is categorized in two ways, the existence level and the dungeon level. However, There is another factor that influences both systems, the level of skills. Evan explained as such to the two. I don't know any skill, Shine said briefly. You don't have to explore what a skill is. The only thing you have to remember is once you master a skill, you get stronger. Some types of skills improve physical and magical abilities just by mastering them. In simple terms, they are passive skills. Skills that increase the efficiency of a specific action. At the same time, you can gain other benefits by mastering a skill. For example, arcane fencing, which is being learned by the Knights of the Marquis of Sheridan, increases the fencing skill level as well as permanently increases the body's physical skills. In fact, Evan had a vague expectation that the weight training he was doing might contribute to developing this fencing skill in the future. Really, even a weak body can learn skills. Tell me, Master, Shine said, how can I get that? Skills come from the following actions. First, the reward that God gives when the dungeon level rises. Second, obtain and read a special book called a skill book. Third, when you are recognized as the master of artifacts with special powers. Fourth, satisfying a specific condition at a designated place. It's a very rare case. For reference, Maricel's necklace falls under the third case. By obtaining the necklace, Evan can summon slime. The moment the artifact recognized him as an artifact, the skill to summon slime was activated. Isn't it all impossible for us? Ah, maybe you're an artifact with the power of money. Stay still, Shine. Isn't Shine grasping the power of the Marquis too well? Of course, Evan planned to do what he just said, but that is in a distant future. Fifth, do a repetitive act until it is recognized as a unique power. Sixth, similar to the fifth, receive instructions that have been handed down from generations and generations. Then, can you guess how you two will obtain skills? Fifth? Sixth. Below spit out without a thought. Shine thought for a moment and then shouted out loud, his face bright as if he had a great realization. Evan gave them a huge smile. Both are correct. Acquisition of skills through repetitive actions and transmission of instructions developed through generations. You'll be empowered by both. At least, for now. When Evan played Yoma Great War in his previous life, he noticed something strange. There were some members of a group that had too much stamina and mana that didn't suit their appearance or occupation. Aristocratic servants. The higher the family's rank, the higher the level, stamina, and magic of their servants. Of course, these do not directly translate to compatibility. But how could a servant get abnormally high stamina and mana? Later, when he studied it further, the answer was simple. They learned their chores through traditional knowledge passed down through generations, and through repeated actions. Shine and Billows are in a great situation. This is because they share their house with the Marquis family, an aristocratic family superior enough to be commanded by the king to manage a dungeon city. So, at least, it could be regarded as the top level among other Marquis families. No, not really. There's only one other family, the Duke of Leona, a relative of the royal family, whose servants have more traditional and superior housekeeping skills. Then, are we going to cook and clean? Evan nodded. It will be difficult. Didn't I tell you that already? Shine and Billows nodded seriously to mirror Evan's serious tone. In the process of mastering the work of other servants, you'll increase your level, but not as fast as others. Your ability to work and efficiency is reduced. Therefore, your skills will grow slower, and as a result, you will have to suffer several times more to reach the same level as the others. However, if they can overcome all the difficulties and master housekeeping skills, they will be able to establish some stamina and mana foundation. And it will help them when the time comes for them to clear the dungeons. I told you in advance that I can show you the way, but I can't walk that way for you. Are we clear? Of course. He believed in the two children, who are now blinking in front of him. The children also trusted and believed the sincerity he showed them. That was enough. Okay, then. Maybelle. Master? As Evan opened his door, he found Maybelle clinging to it. She fell flat on her face like a frog. Instead of looking down at her with cold eyes and asking her what she was doing pressed against the door, he ordered her to do something. Call the chief maid. Huh? Chief maid? Why don't you send these children directly to her? I need to tell her something personal. There were two reasons why Evan wanted to entrust the children to the chief maid. First, they can learn more accurately and faster. Second, the higher the abilities of the person passing the skills, the higher performance a person receiving the skill would have. You are trying to build a wall with your personal maid. You're scary. Maybelle, I'm more afraid of you. Call her quickly. Maybelle's obsession was adding up day by day. Even though Evan didn't flirt with her, he wondered if he can still be stabbed by Maybelle someday. Shine suddenly asked Evan. If the sixth way is to learn the instructions, and the fifth method is a repetitive action, can we learn skills in two different ways, simultaneously? Oh, it's time to learn the instructions first. Start with the basics. Both of you are still too weak to do both ways. So, try to be diligent and do as the maid tells you to do, and put your strength on it when it's possible, got it? Huh. In a cruel and exacting point, Shine bites his lips as if he was resentful, while Below simply nodded innocently. Shortly thereafter, the chief maid arrived. I heard you called me, master. What kind of gems are you going to use this time? Oh, chief maid. She was a 40-year-old, middle-aged woman, but she was still beautiful, with an elegance that she learned from serving the Sheridan family for decades. Servants and maids are not used to mastering martial arts, but chief maids and butlers had superior mana and stamina than other knights and apprentices. I'm not trying to use gems today. This time, I called you to ask you a favor. I heard you bought 2 children from the slave market. Maybe you need something meditative. Jade? Maid Zhang. Evan approached the maid and held her tightly in his arms. Then she looked up from below, and her eyes twinkled at what she saw. The strongest skill that Evan Sheridan has learned for the past 9 years is cuteness. Couldn't you teach them directly? Well. But master, I hear these children. Obviously, she was going to say they were bad products, but Evan urgently hung in her arms to stop her. They are really important kids. They will be with me forever. It may take longer for them to learn, but I can guarantee their talent. Huh? Can't the chief maid take care of them herself? Huh? Master, no matter how much. Oh. No? Really not? Huh. Tears filled up Evan's purple eyes. At that moment, mental damage was obviously inflicted on the chief maid. The chief maid found Evan so cute that it was difficult for her to breathe, but she somehow found her calm. At that moment, Evan can see that she was not convinced and decided to cling tighter. I won't let you go until you tell me you'll do it. Young master? I won't let you go until you say you'll teach Shine and Belos. They are really important kids. I need the chief maid to take care of them unconditionally. Young master. The chief maid was truly puzzled as she watched Evan hang on to her desperately. Of course, there have been many cases where Evan swarmed her. All of them, however, were for childlike reasons, such as hiding the fact he had broken the vase, letting him go out into the city in the middle of the night, or practicing with a real sword. But this? Has he ever acted like this for someone else? The answer is, no. So, is there something really special about these children? Of course, both children seem weaker than others, but that was all. She couldn't figure out why the Marquis' second son would do this. It seemed like she has no choice but to follow the young master's will. She sighed. Okay. Really? I love you. Since the master said so, I will take care of this child. Huh? The chief maid lifted Belos. Then, she smiled a mischievous smile to Evan, who looked at her with a confused expression. You give a boy to the butler. Do it as you did with me, it will be okay. Maid Zhang. Only, then, I will start right now. Oh, As soon as she began to be separated from Evan and Shine, Belos became anxious. The chief maid carried her away. Evan then asked Maybelle to call the butler this time. When she disappeared, Shine asked Evan with an uneasy voice. Master, Who's going to be my boss? That bearded gorilla. Subsequently, Evan succeeded in getting the butler to agree to take Shine in exchange for his dignity. Shine, who watched the scene from the side, trembled, and deeply vowed that he would somehow repay the grace to Evan. Hi. This is Novel Admire. Thanks for the visit. Come back again for more novels.